Hi there, welcome to Transcona Trailer Sales. Today I'm going to be walking you through your 2026 Wildwood Heritage Glen 308Rl. We are just going to start off the back of the unit. If you notice up top, you're pre-mounted for an observation camera. And off to your right, you are pre-mounted for a Wildwood collapsible stair system if you'd like to set up with either of those. It's just as simple as contacting your parts department, letting you know what they want, and they're more than happy to help you out. Also located at the back, right down at the there at the bottom, you do have a 2-inch hitch receiver out back. Just keep in mind on that sticker, you do have some weight ratings. It's really only good for bike racks, so just keep that in mind. Coax plugins right at the back. If you look right through this hole here, it's going to be covered by this little strap, but you can just push the strap out of the way. If you follow that straight back, you come to a nut on the other end that is going to be the manual override for your slide out. In case this were to fail for whatever reason, we hope it doesn't, but there is a manual override there. These electric stabilizer jacks also have an override on the jack itself. On the other side is going to be a motor in this place, so from this side, that's how you manually override them in case it were to fail again for whatever reason. You got your furnace exhaust. Whenever your furnace is running, it'll be blowing out hot air, so just be mindful of that. You got your hot water service port. Really, the only thing you need to worry about is just this power switch. Turning this on supplies power to the thermostat inside. Pressure relief valve. Go over a couple winterizing notes. Isn't like your traditional water heater. There is no bypass valves at the back of the water heater. You do run antifreeze through the system. Once you're done your winterization process completely, meaning you're running you ran all your taps, you just leave this pressure relief valve cracked for the duration of winter. So that way, once the cold winter months and the antifreeze starts gelling up, it has a place to escape rather than expanding and cracking inside the coils. Next, you do have your main water sort of inlet area, city water connection. So if you're at a site with service, just thread a garden hose in there, turn it on, pressurizes all those lines without the needing to run your water pump. And then you get your fresh water connection, which if you're at a site that doesn't have water or you're out boondocking, thread a garden hose in there, turn it on. And that's gonna be what fills your fresh tank. You got your standard 50 amp twist lock connection. You just take a note of this notch here. It lines up with this notch on this side. Pressing that firmly into place, and then you get an 1/8 turn to lock it down, and the threaded collar to really lock it down. If you follow that cord back, you do come to your standard 50 amp plug end. Now a lot of sites here in Manitoba don't have 50 amp service yet, which is why we do include this 30 amp dog bone adapter. But just keep it in mind whenever you are using this dog bone adapter, again, you're going down in power, so you're only going to be able to run one air conditioner at a time rather than the two. So just keep that in mind for when you're using it. 30 amps power, only one air conditioner at a time. If you have the 50, you can use the full two whenever, at the same time, however you please. Now you got your exterior shower, which 751 key, pretty standard, comes with the unit. That's how you get access to that. Now you get a couple different outlets here. They both work the same way. Take the cap, twist them off. That's typically, your sewer hose is going to have these same ears. They just line up with the notches like so and lock into place. Now you're going to have black valves and gray valves. Mainly just the one black valve. You always want to empty black tank first. This will be your dirtiest water filled from your toilets, and then you can come behind that with your gray and your 2 galley and gray, other 2 galley and grays. That way, that's just a little bit cleaner water. It helps flush that hose out, keep that hose that little bit cleaner. Inside here is just a storage compartment. That's where your cord was located. And then inside this front compartment, opening up this guy, there's a couple things you need to worry about. Starter kit, that's where you're going to find a standard sewer hose, standard water hose, as well as some other miscellaneous goodies, including a 15 amp park adapter. Now that's to go down from 30 amps power to 15, which is your standard household outlet. But just keep it in mind, with a unit, especially of this size, it's not going to be adequate enough to run this. It's realistically just to help you open up your slides, maybe run your fridge, and that's going to be about it. On the wall here, you got your battery disconnect switch, like with it in the position it's in now, that's in the connected position on, and turning it to the off position would disconnect the batteries from the unit. Right to the left of that, you do get your solar controller. There's a bunch of different settings you can go around and play with. We currently have it set up for your basic charging needs. If there's a sun outside hitting that solar panel up on the roof, which you do have to make sure you clean periodically to make sure that you're getting a good pure charge, it's applying a charge to the front battery. Again, a bunch of different settings you can go around and play with, but I will recommend going over the owner's manual before you start playing with anything. Right around the front, you got your battery located inside that box here, and then underneath here you get your 2 propane tanks. This cover does just slide out of the way, which I will do for the purpose of the video. Once that slides out of the way, you got your 2 propane tanks. You got your selector valve on the front of your regulator there. With it pointed to this tank, you're obviously drawing off this tank counterclockwise like any standard barbecue to open up the flow. If this tank were to go empty, you can close it, flip this over to the other side and start drawing off this tank while this one's getting filled up. Power tongue jack up front. Now coming around to this side, the other side of the storage compartment. In addition, you got a couple little light switches that turns on some accent lights at the front there, and most of the lights inside, and the light inside the compartment here, it is motion sensing, so it'll only go off whenever you're sensing, whenever it's sensing motion. On the wall, there's a little cover. You flick that open, that's where you get the access to control your second awning. There's going to be a control for the one inside. Just because we're outside and it's easy enough, I can go over the controls now, pushing it down. Awning starts making its way out. Once the awning's at its full extension, you see the back of the metal tube and a little flap hang down. Now sometimes that flap can get stuck, so you might just have to retract a couple of feet and try and get it back in. To try and get it to hang down and then put it back out. Now if it were to start raining, you could take any arm, front or rear, pull down at the center. It's going to change the pitch of the awning head, allowing water to now run off. Now if you like that angle better because it allows for more shade underneath, you can do the same thing with the front arm. Just make sure that you do push them both back to straight before you bring the awning in. That way you don't run the risk of bending anything when you are bringing it in. And of course, whenever you have the awning out, always keep in the back of your mind the wind speeds. Once they start picking up, it's a good idea to bring it in. Otherwise, you do run the risk of bending your arms or ripping your fabric. Again, it gets very costly pretty quick, so just keep that in mind. And then to roll it in is just as simple as pushing that in button. Awning's going to start rolling its way in. Once the arms contact the side of the trailer, you're going to hear the motors just automatically cut out and you're good to go. Now, just a couple notes with this guy too. If you happen to roll it in while it's wet, it's not the end of the world, but just try and remember at your next earliest convenience that you do roll it back out and allow it adequate time to dry off. That way you're not accelerating the growth of mold and mildew in there. And you'll see clamps onto the side of the trailer and you are good to go. Leash latch here in case you have any animals you want to hook up. Couple plugins on the outside here. And now we're going to come to our rear stabilizer jack control. Now there is another one in the front there. You're going to notice them. You can't miss them. They both work the same way. I'm just going to show you the rear today. Push the extend button. They start making their way down to the ground. Now just a couple notes before we completely finish this process that they are stabilizing jacks. They're not leveling jacks. Please don't try and use them as so. Otherwise you do run the risk of bending them or burning out the motor. Again, costly. We don't want to do that. So just use them as stabilizing jack. Make sure you're nice and level before you run them down. Sometimes these might go out at different times. It is an open gear system, so just allow them both feet to make contact on the ground once you hear the motors wind up. That is full extension. And you heard the wind up, so you're at your proper extension. And now the retracting, it's just the total opposite, holding the button, allowing them to spin their way in. And you're all done. Now for the best part, take a step on inside. You can take that assist handle, push it up, holding it 90 degrees, it'll lock into place, that'll allow you to open up your door. You do have to open up your door all the way for the stairs to come down. You got adjustable feet on each end, so you can have nice and level stairs for your campsite. Pull on the blue tab, stairs are going to come towards you. Once it contacts the ground like that, it's always a good idea to make sure that this catch plate is level, as flush as possible with that catch plate, so this door can open up and not bind or anything, nice and freely. Now taking a step on inside, first thing you notice off on the left is that fire extinguisher, which is just like home. Pull the pin and shoot. Now up on the wall here, you can have your JBL sound system control. This is just a Bluetooth device, essentially. You have to hook your phone up for it to play any sort of sound. Once you connect your phone to it, you can choose between your different speakers by pressing the speaker button, on and off with the power button, Bluetooth button to hook up, pause, play, and then you can turn the lights on or off on it. Got your monitor panel system. Pushing the button gives you the corresponding level. Of course, you do only have one black, and then you have the rest of the grays. Water pump switch, turning that on draws out of your fresh tank. Water tank heater, that's just for extended camping seasons, but keeping in mind our Manitoba winters get much too cold for this to be adequate. Realistically, if you camp below -0, you do run the risk of things freezing. You got a couple different light switches here. One's going to do accent lighting behind the slides. The next is going to do this awning light outside. And lastly, you got one little entryway light here in the hallway that turns on. And then you have your different awning controls, and of course your slide out controls. Before you ever run your slide outs, I know with this unit it's pretty difficult, but it's always a good idea just to do a quick visual check, making sure that nothing's shifted during travel. It happens more often than you think. And what I mean by that is just make sure that there's nothing that's going to get caught between the slide out and the wall when you're pushing it out. And then of course just on the outside, making sure you have enough adequate room for it to go out without running into anything. Once you do that, you can start running them out. Just push and hold the button down. Slide outs are going to start making their way out. Once they do reach their full extension, you're going to wind up and click. That goes for all the slide outs. Now you are going to want to operate these slide outs at individual times. Don't try and run more than one out at a time. Now once that slide out does reach its full extension, if you want to be extra cautious, you can just run your hand, make sure you can feel that slide out hitting up against that seal, sealing out any moisture. Got one more slide. Of course, this light switch is the main lights. It's on a dimmer. There's that second one, and now just the last bedroom slide to go. So there you go. You got all your slide outs. The unit's ready to use. We will start off in the bedroom. You got a light switch on the wall, the first bottom one. It's going to turn on a little selfie light, I call it, behind the mirror. It's just some accent lighting, really. And then the next one does all your ceiling lights. Now, coming to this rear air conditioner, the controls for which are all up top. First setting, the first setting is going to be just low fan. Second setting is again low fan, and then you get high fan. So now that's just moving air around using the air conditioner, no heating or cooling involved. One more setting after that, hit to low cool, and then high cool. That's when the air conditioning takes into effect. You got a temperature knob here. If you're going into the red, it's realistically just going to turn it into a fan because there's no heat pump installed. It is just an air conditioner. All the way back over to off to turn it off. You got these intake screens here. Sometimes you have to blow them out with compressed air, so you just have to unsnap these white tabs. This will pop out of place. You can rip down that thing, give it a blow out quick, snap it back in. It's just going to help keeping the flow really good. You got some plug-ins beside the bed, outlets. Underneath the bed, you got some storage space. Above the bed here, you have a light switch on the one side to turn on some lights in the back there. You're going to notice over here, it's a beautiful counter space. All the blinds in the unit do work the same way. You just kind of sit where you leave them. And you got, of course, two different options, the full black or just the quarter black, depending on what your vibe is, I guess. Storage all throughout, little stool there in case somebody wanted to do their makeup or whatever else you would do in the mirror, shave maybe. Undoing that travel strap. Now, whenever you're traveling, of course, it's very important that you latch these into place prior to moving. Otherwise, they're just going to slide around freely and more than likely rip off the wall. We don't want that. Now, once we open it up inside here, you're going to notice they're pre-mounted, pre-plumbed, and pre-wired for a washer-dryer combo. If you'd like to get set up with that, just contact our parts department. They'd be more than happy to help you out. It's going to be a washer-dryer combo that comes inside of here. But if you didn't want that, that's totally okay too, because you have a massive closet space that you could stuff full of clothes, I'm sure. Then closing that out back over. Latching it. That's going to be it for inside the bedroom. Next, we can take a step on into the bathroom. Notice, nice thing Heritage Glen did. You get these nice little coat hooks for you, or key hooks, depending on whichever you have. Bathroom, again, you have two separate light switches. The one on the right is going to do your selfie light. The one on the left is going to do your main lights. Other than that, it's a pretty standard bathroom, except you have your water heater controller on the wall. Now, because I was telling you earlier that this is an on-demand water heater, it doesn't have a tank. It's just a bunch of coils wrapped in a circle with a big flame in the middle. As the water flows through it, it heats the water and it comes through to your tap hot. Now, with that being said, it doesn't operate like your standard water heater. You have a couple different temperatures, a bunch of different temperatures, anywhere from 0 degrees to 50 degrees Celsius. If 50 degrees Celsius isn't hot enough, which if you're showering at hotter than 50 degrees Celsius, you're insane because it's boiling water pretty much after that. You can go up another 5 degrees to 55. But the way you're going to want to set this temperature, the main reason I got into the topic, you want to set that temperature perfectly so that you can just run the hot and be comfortable. It just runs the most efficient that way. They don't want you to have to blend in the cold at all. Other than that, again, just a pretty standard bathroom. Not much going on inside here. And then taking a step on into the living space. So we'll start over on this wall here. You got your main breaker panel. Whenever breaker trips, it'll sit in the middle, so you just have to turn it off and then back on again to reset it. All your corresponding fuses will be on the right. Other than that, you got a little breakfast nook, coffee bar, regular bar, whatever you want to do with it, right here. A couple different plugins. Light switch, again, it's going to turn on some accent lighting. You're going to have tons of accent lighting throughout this unit. You can discover it as you find it. They're just on their own center push buttons typically. And tons of storage in here. There's storage everywhere, but of course, whenever you're just using any of the storage, just be mindful of drains, water lines, and wiring. You're not going to be wanting to affect any of that. And then on the wall, you got your thermostat. This is going to be the control for your main air conditioner as well as your furnace. Now, before we go over that, your furnace does run off propane, and because your unit's equipped with propane, you got your LP detector over here near the ground. If this guy ever starts going off, don't panic. Just turn off the main supplied propane at the front of the unit, open up some windows and vents, get some fresh oxygen inside of here. In addition to that, another little accent light. Thought that was pretty neat. Back to the thermostat. Again, making sure you're pre-purged for that. I'm going to go over purging once we do get to the stove. But make sure you purge your propane lines before you try to fire up your furnace. And the furnace does only have one fan speed and moves all its air through the floor portals you have throughout the unit. The air conditioner, however, has a couple high and low again, just like the one in the front. And then, of course, the same sort of idea for filters. And you got these louvers you can open up to dump all its air into the main living space. Push the mode button, push the center button once, it illuminates itself. Push it again, you can go into your modes. If we go over to cool, push enter, you're now with air conditioning on and you're in high auto. I always recommend using the auto setting as it's going to be the on-demand setting, I call it. So if the room's currently 21 and we have it set to 16, once the room reaches 16, it'll kill the air conditioner. If you were to have this fan on high or low without the auto there, that fan for the air conditioner is going to run continuously until you manually turn it off. Now that's also going to affect for when you go to fire up your furnace. When you would go to fire up your furnace, your air conditioner fan would still continuously run. So again, that's why I recommend using the auto. It's the easiest, friendliest option. One more over, that's going to take you over your furnace. It's going to kill your air conditioner, fire up your furnace. The furnace, once you do fire it up, runs for an additional 3 minutes as an added safety feature to allow itself time to cool down. So don't panic if you turn it off. It doesn't turn it off right away. Really cool feature Coleman included again is going to be that cool plus heat option. So depending on what your room drops down to will depend on what it kicks in, whether that be the air conditioner or the furnace. But it's very important that you're using the auto function for that. Otherwise, it won't be able to operate properly. One more time after that, you get a dry, which is just a dehumidifying mode to try and take as much moisture out of the air as possible. And one more time, we'll cycle everything back off. So you can start over here. You got a nice little pantry space with a bunch of storage. All the motion sensing lights have two different options. They have number 2, which is motion sensing. In the middle is off, and then they have setting 1, which will be on full time. Got your stove here. Stove, fridge, freezer combo. Temperature control right up here for the freezer, and down below it's down here for the fridge. You got your power button, pushing and holding it for 5 seconds turns it off or on. And then you got the snowflake to change up between all your different options. You're gonna notice some off-grid writing here. That's just letting you know the most energy efficient setting to run it on if you're running it off battery power. And then of course you got fast, coldest, number 5. Let's say you're planning to go out for a camping trip. Your significant other warned you to turn the fridge on the night before. You totally forgot. That number 5 option is going to get the fridge the coldest, the fastest. Get it nice and cold. Stick your stuff in there, and then you can turn it down to whatever temperature you prefer. Island area, sink, tons of storage space, and then behind me you get your microwave. Again, just like home, not much I'm going to show you there. Plugs all throughout, storage all throughout. Range hood, I always recommend running range hood whenever you're running your stove. That way you're evacuating those propane fumes as you make them. Now for coming to fire up the stove, whenever you first get to your campsite, I always recommend coming to run your stove first thing. The reason being, it's going to be the quickest, easiest way to quote-unquote purge the system. The reason I say that is you decide how long the gas is on for and how many lighting sequences you do. If you want to go to try to fire up your water heater or your furnace before you ran your stove, those will only try lighting themselves a couple times, and if there was still air in the system and there was no flame, it would throw a fault code. If you didn't know what the fault code meant, it could throw some frustration into your weekend. We want to keep your camping experience great. So again, whenever you just first get to your camper after having it off for a while, just come and fire up your stove first thing. Sometimes it can take a few seconds to start getting air through. So of course, because it's gas, always being safe whenever you're purging it. If you're running this gas valve on, just make sure you're hitting that sparker every few seconds. That way you're not going to get any buildup of gas in a minor combustion, because if that were to happen and your face was nearby, there's a chance you could lose some eyebrows and eyelashes, something none of us want to experience. So again, just be safe whenever you're doing so. As long as you're hitting that igniter every few seconds, there should be no buildup of gas. Be patient when you're doing it. Then for lighting the oven, it's the same thing. You turn it over to the pilot option, push and hold the knob in, giving it a few seconds. You're going to see right now what I mean by sometimes it can take a few seconds to get all the air out. As long as you're pressing down on the knob and hitting the sparker every few seconds, at some point, as long as there was propane up front, there you go, you get that pilot to lit. Once that pilot can stay lit without you holding in on the knob, you can turn it up to your desired temperature and it fires right on up. To the right of that, you got your oven light as well as some illumination knobs if you wanted to turn those on. Power button to turn that all off. You got some storage down below. Now for what I think is possibly one of the coolest features in here, you got what we call a hidden storage center. So if you open this guy up, right up by my hand here, you got a little latch, twist it over to the side, that unlocks it. Now it's going to be very important you latch this during travel, otherwise again it's going to fly around freely. Open it up, a massive storage spot for whatever you please, whether that be Cheerios or dishes, or I mean really anything. Closing that up, just making sure, trying to remember to, especially if you're traveling, to latch it up. And you're good to go. Fireplace down below. You got your power button on the far right. You can change your different flame colors with the button to the left of it. Right in the center, you got your different rock light colors. Then you got your different heat options. You got low and high. And then, of course, you got a timer that goes anywhere from 30 minutes to 9 hours. Power button on the right to turn all that off. Let's say you had some extra guests you forgot about. Remove the cushions from the back of the couch here. Pick up at the foot. Pick up at the foot of it. Pull it. Start pulling it towards you. It's going to pull right out of place. At that point, take your feet, hang those down, and then you can hang this down. Drop down that backer. And have yourself another bed in case again you had some guests you weren't expecting. And then to close it all up, it's just the total opposite. Putting everything back into place and taking your back cushions and putting it back into place. Storage all throughout. You got 2 recliner chairs, quite nice. And then you got these guys. Now it's going to be very important that you either strap these up or just fold them up for whenever you are moving. Other than that, that is going to be it for this unit here. If you have any other questions, feel free to give us a call.